finishes off in style. A magnificent strike into the crowd. India lift the World Cup after 28 years.
We're all smiles here, and we're expecting that you are also all smiles because, well, international cricket is back. I watched, all our panelists watched. I'm sure you watched as West Indies beat England in the first test match at Southampton. International cricket is back after such an unforced break. We are all so happy about it. Hello and welcome to this episode of the cricket podcast HotSpot. As always, I am your host, sports journalist and broadcaster Chetan Narula. And with me, of course, we have my co-host and former Indian cricketer, Deep Dasgupta. Deep, relief, excited, ecstatic, your first reaction to that test match and the result, of course.
Well, my first reaction is feeling alive again. I mean, I couldn't believe that after 117 days, seeing live cricket again. And on Sunday, I actually watched live cricket, live football, and live Formula One. So life felt so good again. So you know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's good to be kind of back to some kind of normalcy. I think that's what sports and live sports gives you, and especially in these times. So yeah, and good to be back, as in watching live sports, and also good to see West Indies win the first Test match because. And the way the test match was played, it went on till the fifth day, obviously because of the weather issues, but also till the last session, you weren't really, it was a very, very close fight.
Absolutely. It was a super Sunday. We had, like Deep said, we had the cricket starting first, then the Formula One, then obviously Premier League. In July, you don't really have that. What you would have is international football, Wimbledon, and then some cricket going on in some part of the world. So it was a super Sunday. And like Deep said, in this COVID era, a first super Sunday like that, it just felt so good. And we have a very special guest on the show, and obviously you can see him on the screen. He is no stranger to Super Sundays. He is one of the most experienced names in the international cricket circuit. He has tons and tons of experience directing and producing live cricket. He's worked in every country, with every broadcaster, with every major sport tournament. I don't want to say cricket tournament. For the first time, we welcome on HotSpot, Hemant Buch. Welcome, Hemant. How have you been? How's been the lockdown? How was Super Sunday for you?
Thanks, Chetan. Yeah, it was pretty good actually. It's been the lockdown has been tough. Lockdown has been tough for everybody. I don't know when I've been, in Delhi at this time of the year. I don't think I've been for the last 20 years because I used to live in Dubai from 2002 onwards, and I don't think June, July has been a time where I've ever been in Delhi. So I've got borne the brunt of the summer. And waiting for the monsoons. It's different. It's very different. And we're trying to find things to do and trying to make life interesting. You mentioned Super Sunday last year. This was a Super Sunday. We had the World Cup final last year. So June, July. You're saying you don't have much sport, but this much cricket. But this was a time that you had something really, really big, something memorable, something I don't think any cricket watcher will ever forget in their lives. So I was thinking about that day as well. And Super Sunday, I concentrated on the cricket. When the cricket finished, I went on to the football. I didn't bother with the Formula One. No.
Well, that's for the motorsport aficionados. We also had last year the same day, Djokovic versus Federer Wimbledon final. That was an epic clash. And, we hope Wimbledon is back soon and all sport gets back soon. But for now, we will concentrate just on the cricket, which is obviously the first segment of the show. We will be taking a little bit deeper look at how that first test between West Indies and England, or I should say England and West Indies, progressed. Deep, first up, coming to you, a sincere effort. That's what we spoke about, that West Indies, they've been there 15 days practicing that bubble. A sincere effort, a back-breaking, hard-working effort. They were in control from the first day and England were playing catch-up since then.
to start off with, let me also say hi to Hemant ji. I mean, obviously, he's such a
Hi.
senior person, uh, and also the fact that we are from the same school.
Yes.
He's senior to me. We are from Sardar Patel Vidyalaya, both of us. So yeah, welcome Hemant ji. And going back to your question, I mean, I think it is heartening to see West Indies kind of change their culture a bit. Because earlier on, I mean, when you talk about West Indies cricket, you would talk about flair, you would talk about, the swag and everything else. But last decade or so, decade and a half, maybe they didn't have the talent to walk the talk. I'm glad that they've changed their course, and credit to Jason Holder. That, I mean, I think he's a fabulous captain. And now you can see them play a little un-West Indies like, which is struggle a bit, that perseverance, the doggedness, the discipline. I think it was heartening to see, and it's been happening for the last year and a half. But I think they still haven't reached their peak. I think they still need to work a lot more. But I'm really glad to see West Indies do what they did in this Test match.
Hemant, coming to you, obviously it was a bubble. The players were in a bubble. We had George Dobell from ESPN Cricket Info on the show last week, and he was talking about the first test. He told us that the journalists were in a bubble before the game. The commentators were in a bubble. Southampton, the Rose Bowl, it provided that. Ageas Bowl. There's so many different names to that ground. As a director producer, what did you see or identify with the game which was different from the pre-COVID era, which the ordinary cricket fan perhaps would not have probably noticed on television?
Well, I mean, there were a few things, but the most different for the players in England was the absence of the crowd. In England, you always have the crowd. In our part of the world, we're used to having no crowd. I mean, you're playing first class games, and people bear me out. There is absolutely nobody to watch the game
Yeah.
at all. And same with the cricket in the UAE, perhaps even in Sri Lanka. There are very few occasions when you do get crowd. So we're used to all of that. The other thing that I noticed was, things like the cameras. You had this dolly camera, which was the adjustable dolly, where they did the captain's interviews post the toss. You didn't have a commentator on field interviewing them and stuff. So that was a little different. I mean, they were talking about their teams and stuff. Also, the end of the day, though, the interviews were done differently, like they probably do in football as well. Remote questions, and the person answers on the mic. So it was a little different. You used to yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry. I mean, just wanted to ask you a question on that. Is how difficult it is. I mean, as a director and a producer, to kind of manage all this. I mean, with remotely controlled everything.
The question here was of getting used to it. It was happening for the first time for cricket, at least. So to get used to the protocols, the fact that you may not have the same sort of configuration that you would have had normally. You wouldn't have had too many people in the truck. There was also distancing between the EVS, the replay operators. So it was done differently from usual. Uh, you're trying out stuff for the first time. They also had a failure of their desk, I think, at the start of the day. That it was stuck on one camera. So they had a lot of technical issues, and it was the worst time to have a technical issue. So it would have been tough for them. It's the law, right? When things have to go wrong, they do go wrong, and that's what happened. But they managed really well. So it was nice to see.
One more thing I wanted to ask Hemantji is do you see this as a temporary solution till the time we get over this whole COVID epidemic or whatever? Do you see this as a temporary one, or you see some parts of it staying even after the whole COVID era?
It's a good question. I would like to think it's temporary, but we have bean counters. We have people who like looking at the bottom line. So if it works as far as cutting down budgets is concerned, I'm sure people will be having a very close look at things and saying, okay, maybe we can cut down on this, we can cut down on that, maybe this we can do, offsite and stuff like that. I would prefer it to stay the way it is, because it works in a particular way. But
Mm.
I'm sure there will be a few changes, because when something comes in and it helps financially, then people find it very hard to go back to spending money.
Deep, talking a little bit about the cricket, England's batting, it was always a bowling versus bowling thing. Batting for both sides was the question mark. While West Indies batting surprised us, England's batting also surprised us, not taking that brunt. We talked about them being undercooked. Was that the scenario? And also, you punted on Ben Stokes, a long-term captaincy option. We only one Test match as a sample size, basically. But did he do something wrong? Did he do something right? Just what do you think?
Listen, let's start with the batting aspect of it. I think we discussed this, and it was quite evident that it's going to be. I mean, batting was the weaker suit for both the sides, right? And as far as England is concerned, I thought, winning the toss and batting first was a brave call, right? And maybe a normal situation, I would have said yes, I would have agreed with it. But looking at the current situation, it is always difficult for a batsman to get into rhythm, right? And for bowler, because you have multiple opportunities. So if your first spell is not good enough, you can always come back for your second spell. But as a batsman, you've got just one opportunity. So I thought that was, they could have avoided that. And I think that was a big call. As far as Ben Stokes' captaincy is concerned, I think I really liked it. I mean, obviously, he, as an individual, as a cricketer, he's aggressive. And it shows in his captaincy as well. But I'm sure with maturity and with experience that he'll be able to kind of control that aggression the way he's done with his cricket. I'm sure his captaincy will be able to be aggressive, but will be able to channelize that aggression. And I honestly believe, and I really love the way, because we were talking about last time about how they need to take those tough calls. Dropping Broad was a huge call, right? It's a massive call. And somebody who's captaining for the first time would have that courage. I'm not going into whether it was right or wrong, just the call itself. And that's, I think, for example, in the second test, you would like to see a couple of changes. You would like to see someone like Ben Foakes coming in. But again, Josh Butler, vice captain, would you do that? So I think long term, I honestly believe Ben Stokes is a better option. I thought he did really well in this test match. Also backing his decisions. His press conference was brilliant, where he said, you know what, I'm going to back my decision. Good, bad, ugly, I'll stand by it.
And in fact, that is the question that I want to put to Hemant, because you talked about Stuart Broad being dropped. Huge call, massive call, especially not just looking back at his previous record, but also the last couple of years, the way he has really bowled. What we don't see, Hemant, is in the middle of a test match, a player who's been dropped, whether he's senior, junior, who's been dropped, coming on telling the broadcasters, hey, listen, I've been dropped, and I'm really upset about it. Especially we don't see that in Indian cricket. That's something really new. I found it a little weird. And as headline grabbing as it was, is that something you really want to see in terms of how the dressing room, how it might affect the dressing room?
Well, first of all, I would just go back to that decision of dropping Broad. The moment it was made, I thought it was a big mistake. You needed somebody like that in English conditions. You don't need pace in England, not just raw pace. And you had Jofra Archer, so you didn't need Mark Wood. It would be good to have him, but since you had Stokes as well, you didn't really need it. Coming back to your question about this, I think it's. We don't live in a democracy, so we don't understand how democracy works. This is how democracy actually works, where you're allowed to air your views, and people like it or lump it. We've had so many times the Australians saying that I want to be captain, when somebody else is the captain, and it's not held against them. If here the same thing is done, it will be held against the person. So yeah, it's a reflection of the society. You finding it weird is also a reflection of the society, because I don't think in England people would have found it weird. I think that is what happens. People are allowed to speak their mind, and Broad had written in his column as well before the game. He talked about the fact that if they drop him, he would not like it, but he did not know whether he would be dropped or not, and he could understand it if he would be dropped. He wouldn't like it, but he could understand it because all the fast bowlers were fit, and there was a tough choice to make. So I can understand his disappointment. I can understand the fact that the team allowed him to say what he said. There were no sanctions, and they knew what was going to be asked, and they knew what his answer would be as well. So there's a free and frank exchange of ideas. Ben Stokes said as well that he had no problem with dropping Broad. So everybody is allowed to say what they did, what they felt. Everybody knows what the other person feels in our part of the world, but nobody's allowed to say it. So it's much better to have it out there, I think.
And Deep, very quickly, this is the final question of this segment. Joe Root returning for the second test match. Is Broad coming back for Manchester? I mean, what can we expect in terms of a very explosive situation with Stuart Broad airing his views? Is he coming back?
I don't think it's explosive. It can get explosive if he behaves in a different way inside the dressing room. If it's out there and it's clarified and everyone's on the same page, I don't think that is much of an issue. And it seems like that. I mean, we're not aware what's happening inside the dressing room. So as long as that his behavior and his conversations are all right inside the dressing room, it's fine. I see a few changes. I think Josh Butler might not be dropped. I think he's still going to play another test match at least. And then I see, I would like to see Zach Crawley play at number 3 and Joe Root come at 4 and in place of Joe Denley. And as far as the bowling situation is concerned, I agree with Hemant because I honestly believe that playing Mark Wood and Jofra Archer together, if you have all the other bowlers available, you can do without that. So from that perspective, I think Wood makes way for Stuart Broad, and then you rotate. Anyways, you're going to play 5 more test matches in 5 weeks. So anyways, there'll be a lot of rotation that we'll see, and it only makes sense. You keep rotating the fast bowlers, and I honestly don't. I mean, ideally speaking, I would play either Jofra Archer or Wood.
Well, it'll also be interesting to see how West Indies take on this second test match. Obviously, they've had the better of the exchanges with England in the recent past. Obviously, this first test match as well, back in the Caribbean as well. It'll be interesting to see if they make changes to their pace attack. Shannon Gabriel, Kemar Roach, yes, Deep. Yeah.
You know what? England has lost, out of the last 10 series that they've played, they've lost 8 times the first test match of series. 8 out of 10 times. I mean, I don't know if that means they're slow starters or whatever, but that's the record in the last 10 test series that they've played.
Hemant, would you like to take that? India were also perennial slow starters. This is something different now. We're seeing this with England.
India are slow starters because of the way they go about their series abroad. They don't like to spend much time, warming up, training. Pakistan last year spent a month. They went there a month in advance. Again, they've gone there a month in advance. So by the time you get to the test match, you are warmed up, you're ready, you're adjusted to the conditions. India should not have lost in South Africa. They lost only because they were not ready. So this is the mistake we make even in Australia. We're hoping to have a shorter quarantine so that players can come in later perhaps. I don't know. I don't think it works. This is a good way for teams to come in early. I mean, you're forced to come in early and sort of get used to conditions. And I think if that happens, teams will do better. And as far as England are concerned, yes, they are slow starters, but I think they have a terrible batting lineup. I think Pakistan are going to exploit that again. So Pakistan also doesn't have a very strong batting lineup, but I think they've done well in England, and you will see them get more and more exposed as I think the season goes on.
Interesting there. For now, though, it'll be West Indies who will be eyeing a series win, a very rare series win in English conditions for them, of course, and they'll be trying to attack the English batting lineup for a second time in Manchester as the action resumes at Old Trafford. Quickly moving on to the second segment, which is actually the main theme of this episode, considering the guest we have. In this COVID era, what has taken a hit is not just the cricketing action on the field, but also off the field. There has been a bit of a bloodbath in terms of broadcasting. How broadcasting has changed, Hemant was pointing to the fact that costs cutting will be seen as a factor going ahead. But cost cutting is not just in terms of production, but also in terms of broadcasting rights. Broadcasting rights are very, very important to the economy of cricket. And from where we stand at this moment, we have had some very, very important news in the last couple of weeks. Sri Lanka, they have brought out repeated tenders, Sri Lankan cricket, repeated tenders from the last 3 or 4 months, from February onwards, 5 or 6 times now that their tenders have found no takers, especially since India's tour of Sri Lanka, which was supposed to be in June, was postponed, or there were doubts about it. Similarly, New Zealand cricket, their deal with Star Sports has not been renewed because, of course, there is a lot of issues in terms of how the calendar will look. And of course, India is not touring to New Zealand anytime soon. They have just 3 ODIs in 2022. Then there is Cricket South Africa, who are searching for a new broadcast deal. That's the overseas broadcast deal. And we have West Indies and Pakistan, who are also in the same boat. So, Hemant, not surprising really, but at the same time worrying, because 5 boards, these are 5 prominent cricket nations. A lot of income is generated from broadcast rights. How do you see the situation? How do you see it progressing from here onwards?
Yes, it's a bit worrisome because most of the money comes out of India. See, that's always going to be the problem. The world of cricket is financially not as well developed as it should be, perhaps. So when you expect the bulk of the money to come out of India, you have a problem. As long as England, England are touring, these boards are fine, because Sky picks up those rights. But all of the rest, it becomes a little bit of a problem if the Indian broadcasters don't pick it up. In India as well, I think people have become more prudent. It's not good for the viewer because we will be losing out on a lot of action if we don't get to watch, for example, New Zealand, like you said, South Africa, Pakistan, Sri Lanka. I'm sure these will get picked up, but they may not get picked up for as much as these boards are hoping they'll be picked up for. So yes, there will be a big hit in their revenues, and that will reflect, on the sort of teams that they put up, the sort of development that they're able to do. So it's going to be a whole knock-on effect for all of this. So yes, I think that cricket needs to sort of widen its horizons a little bit. We've also in India been lucky that we've got to watch cricket from all over the world, and our broadcasters have splashed the cash. But with 10 merging with Sony, we one player going out of the market, and then there are only 2 big players left. And with Discovery as well, B Sport being taken over by Discovery and becoming Eurosport, it has sort of condensed the market a little bit. So we have only 2 serious players at the moment, and when there are only 2 serious players, they've sort of they've taken the specific boards that they want, and then the rest are supplementary. Only if they get them for the price that they want it, they will take it, and that's fair enough, I guess.
Deep, Hemant touched an important point here, that it's driven by Indian cricket, and it is a well-known fact as well. Only today we were reading in Times of India, before the recording, on the day of recording, in fact, that England's tour of India, which was supposed to happen, is now also under the potential threat of being condensed, being reduced from 5 test matches to 3 test matches, play a few more ODIs and T20s, so that the broadcaster, Star Sports, they might benefit from advertiser revenue. And that is also an important thing, because they are the ones who further go and buy rights. Do you think this is going to become an even more Indian-centric market, especially with short tours being crammed in the next couple of years?
Well, obviously, India will have to play a huge role in this. I mean, revival of the economy, the sports economy, or the cricket economy, because it's only natural. Because if you look at the whole cycle, the ecosystem, the sponsors, they put in the money for the broadcasters put it up as rights money to the boards, and the major part of the finance that we see in the sport is through the rights money. So that's where it will definitely take a hit, because obviously sponsors don't have enough marketing budgets now. I mean, the biggest budget cut would be from the marketing aspect of any corporate. So from that perspective, yes, cricket or any sport or any arts or whatever will take a hit in these times. And also, as Hemantji was mentioning, this is a buyer's market, right? Anyone who has the cash will call the shots here. So that's where I think eventually it will be picked up. That's what I believe. But obviously, because it being a buyer's market, so they have they hold all the cards. The other important thing is we also have to, I mean, I see a lot of pivoting happening in these times. For example, let's look at New Zealand. They've sold their rights to a digital partner, right? The main rights holder is a digital partner. So you will see a lot of pivoting in this during this period where all of, I mean, we will still be able as consumers, we will still be able to consume sports world over or cricket being played world over, but maybe the medium might change, yeah, the platform might change. And that's what I think. I think as consumers, I think we will, I mean, the consumer will be benefited in the long run. But obviously, I mean, as far as taking a hit is concerned, it'll be the sport, will be the boards, and maybe the broadcasters as well.
Hemant, you mentioned that obviously it's a condensed market in terms of broadcasters, but we have seen a couple of digital players crop up. You have Dream 11 who have their fan code app. You have Sports Tiger. So a few digital players, even Facebook, they are trying to make an entry with the ICC rights. They were trying to get those ICC rights. They obviously already broadcast La Liga in India and a couple of other events as well. Do you think that we can see a paradigm shift from television to digital, where digital in India becomes the active player? For example, a series being played in New Zealand, say Bangladesh are touring New Zealand, and we are actually consuming it only on digital and not on television?
It's quite possible. You talked about Facebook. Facebook were doing stuff around the World Cup. That's what they had the rights for. So they were doing digital shows around it, which was quite nice, quite interesting as well. With platforms like Dream 11, for example, also it's interesting. The question with platforms like this is with the stories that are coming up these days. I mean, that I believe stuff like Swedish league and the Zambia league and stuff like that, those are being shown. So there is a little bit of a suspicion about these sort of broadcasts. If they overcome it, the PCB had a problem with that being, with the PSL being shown on what they termed a betting platform. So that is a little bit of an issue with something like that. I think it's a much bigger platform than that. Dream 11. It's quite a good platform, to be honest with you, and they've done a lot for cricket because they've shown cricket from all over the world and they've done stuff around with it. But there is that little bit of suspicion, and that needs to be sort of assuaged a little bit. Facebook are definitely a big player, and I think Geo could be a player as well if they want to come in. So I mean, there is no dearth of players. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll see stuff like New Zealand on a mainstream platform. You might be able to see it on these other platforms, possibly like a Dream 11. If all goes well, we might be able to see it. But I mean, I think personally that where we consume it, what we call mainstream, is where cricket needs to be, at least at this point in time. I think we will be consuming it digitally, like Hotstar and stuff. But I would still prefer it to be on Star and Star and Sony, and then also being shown on digitally on a fan code or or a Disney Hotstar.
Go ahead, Deep.
If I may add, Chetan, to that is I really like the whole idea that New Zealand has, the path that New Zealand has taken. Because a couple of years ago, where I was in Harare, I was talking to one of the journalists from Netherlands. They said Netherlands cricket went down because the rights were picked up by Sky and it was pay-per-view. So a lot of people were not able to watch cricket, right? Because a lot of people did not pay that kind of money, right, for cricket. So in New Zealand, what's happening right now? You wanted to say something, Hemant?
I'm saying the Spark is also pay-per-view in New Zealand, so it's going to be more or less the same thing. Earlier it was free to air on TVNZ, but now it's going to be a pay-per-view.
Right, but what they've done is they've sold those digital rights to them, and what they are doing is they're giving it to the national broadcaster, and they were working on, I believe they're working on a revenue sharing. So the main rights are with digital, which will be pay-per-view. but the television rights will be free for the consumer, and they work on revenue model. So it will be available, widely available for whatever medium you want to choose to consume it, whether digital or television.
That just kills the digital media, because if it is widely available on television for free, why would you pay to watch it on digital? That's the sort of conundrum, and it's a new platform as well.
Yeah.
It's not as if it's been there throughout, and people have been watching it on that, and so they identify with it or something like that. So let's see how it works then, if it's that way. But with that going to pay-per-view, it's going to shrink the market, I think. But let's see how it comes out.
Right. One thing I really want to ask you is, do you think that slowly the consumption pattern will go towards digital from television?
It's already gone towards digital. I personally watch everything on digital. I watch it on my iPad or my laptop, because other people in the house would prefer to watch the television, so they monopolize the television. Now you don't have the fight, so I think that's pretty good. Also, you can watch it on the go all the time. You're on the phone. Earlier you used to listen to commentary. Now you can watch the whole thing. So I think this is something that is going to work, especially in India, where data is cheap. When data is cheap, you're at liberty to do these things.
Looking at the digital aspect, now someone like you, have you already started thinking, directing or production of a broadcast from a digital perspective? Would that be different from how you would produce for television? Would that be different?
Not really. No, the match itself wouldn't be different, but for the digital viewer, we've realized that the digital viewer has a much shorter attention span than somebody who watches it on television, because this is the world of Twitter, 280 characters, now 140 earlier. So it's something which needs to be very short. So if you look at what the ICC did during the World Cup, what the CPL do, what other leagues do, they've got little snippets that go out, and that samples the league, that provides viewers a peek into what is going on. You have little snippets of interviews, you have a short soundbite. It grabs the viewer's attention, and that's what you want here. And you make the headlines, or you watch a sensational catch, and you can see it. It's something that we need to do here in India as well, because we're not able to see footage on the BCCI platform, for example, and we get some sensational cricket in India. We only see stuff around it because there are rights issues around it. But I think this is something that we need, because it only helps grow the main product. So yeah, I mean, the difference there as far as digital is concerned is the stuff around it. Shorter digital shows, more informal, funky, younger generation people doing it. You don't necessarily like the older people on those kind of shows. People who prefer the shorter soundbite to the long-winded speech.
Hemant said that nowadays we watch digital, consume it as much as possible, especially with the internet being cheap in India. It has taken the fight over the remote away, I guess, from the Indian household. But just Hemant, you also mentioned that earlier you used to listen to the commentary. Now you can just watch on digital when you're commuting. Does this mean radio commentary, the good old fashioned radio commentary, is that going obsolete? It's a question for both of you.
Well, radio commentary is awesome. The problem now is that you need you need to be a connoisseur to be listening to radio commentary. A lot of people like to listen to the picture being painted over the radio. It's a special skill that the commentators need to have as well. And television and radio commentators are so vastly different from each other. One needs to talk a lot, the other one needs to talk much less. So there is a huge difference. It's very romantic, but I would rather watch the game than just listen to it personally.
Deep?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's this song, right? Video Kill the Radio Star. I think that's how it is. But yeah, I mean, listen, I don't mind watching, listening it on radio, because obviously the fact that, someone who's traveling is on the go, and I'm not working on a certain series or something. You're driving and all, and you're listening to the radio. Yeah, I mean, I think it's still there. And also for a country like ours, where yes, television is widespread, availability, and phone as well nowadays. But yeah, I mean, still it's, you still have a chunk of the population who still listen on the radio. So yeah, I mean, I think it's still going to be relevant, at least for the next 4 or 5 years. You're all right, mate.
Where your bad radio network, bad mobile network, you'll need the radio anyway. Yeah, so it might still work as long as your batteries.
Well, quickly moving
Yeah.
on to the final part of this segment. One of the major things that has happened also in the recent times, it was in the news. The Premier League, it is setting an example. When you look westwards, all these leagues, they're setting the example. The Premier League is now trying to bring out a digital service where all the Premier League matches will be available digitally. It is something that Formula One has also done, Formula One Digital. It's not available in India yet, but it's available in more than 40 countries worldwide, where you just subscribe digitally and the race is available along with the past clips, highlights, everything. The whole package is available digitally. Premier League is moving towards that. They're trying to create the Amazon or Netflix. Hemant, is this a model that cricket could replicate, especially like the BCCI? They do their own production. So is this something that they could really, really replicate and take out the digital angle? But also here, the important fact is something like the IPL, which fetches around 16,000 crores for 5 years. You can't really take out the digital angle. So how do you see it playing? Is this something that can happen? If not, and if it does, how does it impact something like an IPL?
The only reason you would do it is to increase your revenues. If your revenues are already there without taking the headache of doing all of this, then why would you do it? I think it works fine. So, for example, for the IPL, it's there in all the territories that you need it to be. Yes, if you wanted to go into certain territories where you have nobody taking it, perhaps it works. But then those territories would be so small as they would not matter at all. So I don't think it needs to be done by the BCCI at this point in time. It is a decent idea. I mean, for example, like you say, the New Zealand board, if they find no takers in India, they could think of a service like this where you and I would want to watch New Zealand cricket at 2:30 in the morning, or would be able to wake up and watch it. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, even the Premier League would not be able to do it if they've sold it in the Far East, for example, the rights that have been sold in the Far East, they would be worth a lot more than doing a pay-per-view digital, because they would have sold it for so much more. So I don't know which localities they're looking at. It depends upon the locality. It depends upon the place where it is, where you're going to sell to.
They were primarily looking for the UK market. Deep, you had a point. Go on.
No, I'm saying, especially for the EPL, see, the other issue is they have season tickets, right? So if somebody has bought those season tickets, you've got to give him the game or give them the game, right? So I think most of it, for example, for Manchester United, for the season ticket holders, that is available on MUTV now. So they are providing that for the season ticket holders on their platform. So those are the things which will happen, which we will see. Like I said, I mean, there will be things which will come up, newer things, new ideas. And talking about EPL, I just want to ask this, because when I was looking at football and cricket, the major difference was the ambience, right? And Hemantji, this is, I mean, you've seen the EPL, right? You have this ambience there being, artificially played on the PA system and all. Can that not be done in cricket?
It's not played on the PA system. It's played out on an audio stream. In La Liga, in La Liga, they also have this where they have the fake crowd. That's it's superimposed on the seats so they don't look blank. Sometimes it doesn't work and the picture goes all over the place, but they're trying. This is I think collaboration with EA Sports, who do the FIFA game. So they've got this audio which is there, and it's available, which they've used, and they've developed algorithms for it, and it works fine. It sounds really good. In England too, Sky had a dedicated feed with what they call, I think, Lord's sound. So they had the crowd noise on it as well. I'm not exactly sure how it was done, but cricket audio is a little bit more complicated than football audio, because Football is basically just chanting and people shouting at continuously through the game. As far as cricket is concerned, it's a little bit more nuanced. Especially in places like England, you don't have people screaming and shouting, and there are ebbs and flows, and sometimes you have the crowd going silent. Sometimes you have the crowd getting behind the players, and it varies. When a wicket falls, it's different. When it's just a normal delivery which is left alone, there's a different sound. So it's different. They did it in England. I haven't watched it, so I don't know how well it worked. But they did have a secondary stream audio for their on-demand customers, and yeah, that was a premium service that they offered.
Well, I tell you, in the IPL, we'll have a perfect stream of spectators dancing, and all the songs playing and the people dancing in the aisles, as Tony Gray used to say. Especially when you go to the Chinnaswamy or the Wankhede, or for that matter, to Chepauk, when CSK are playing, or KKR, full houses every time at the Eden Gardens. What a sight that is! What a sight that we have missed this summer. We would close this segment with a question on the IPL. Interesting conversation on television and digital rights. This question begs an answer here, Hemant. 16,500 crores is a figure that I had mentioned earlier as well for 5 years for the IPL. 8,500 crores for Indian cricket rights. This cycle of rights is going to end soon. This auction is going to restart soon. Do you think, people have been talking 20,000 crores, the new figure for the next 5 years. Everybody is getting ready for the next round of auctions. Do you think this is sustainable? Do you think it will go up? Do you think it will come down? What is your opinion?
I think it should probably go up, but right now the economy is in a state of flux. We'll see how quickly it recovers from this pandemic. It's very important that we recover. If we recover in time, we should be okay. I see digital players coming into the market, and as Deep said, they would disrupt the market a little bit more. I see Facebook and Jio as being possibly more serious contenders this time around as well. So it will be interesting. I don't think Star is going to let things go anyway. They're a very, very strong group, and I think the rights fee will go up. It will be interesting, yes, because of the pandemic, but I'm sure they will work things out, and I foresee growth there.
One quick question. Sorry, one quick question.
Yeah.
Last cycle, Hemantji, television got more than digital, right? The highest was Facebook was 3,900 and television was 6,000 something.
11,000.
Do you see in the next 11,000? So do you see in the next cycle, which is 2023, if I'm not wrong, digital catching up with television, the rights amount?
I see no reason why not. I mean, it's growing at a very fast pace. I think it might still not catch up totally, but it will get much closer. And that's why I say all these players will become very, very serious in the future. We've got Facebook, and we've got a very good man at its helm doing the sports, Peter Hutton, who used to be my former boss, and I'm sure that he will come up with something interesting this time around. Let's wait and see.
Well, Hemant's smile saying there that there's something that he knows, and perhaps this is not the best platform that he would want to let us on. But now he has to let us on to a few things, because we are moving towards the moving fingers segment on our show, where we put the extra spotlight on. There's always spotlight on our guests, but we just switch on a couple more bulbs. First question to you, Hemant. Your vast experience in directing and producing the sport, DRS. It's a very, very hot debate. How do you see technology in cricket today? Even in the first test match, England, West Indies, 3 DRS decisions now for every team. The umpires coming in under a lot of pressure. How is technology placed? How would you see, from a director point of view, how would you like to see it improve, especially with DRS? And of course, before you start answering, there's also this debate over the no ball, that the on-field umpires should no longer check the no ball, and it should be given to a third umpire. It was even trialed last year.
So it's one of my favorite topics, this DRS. I've written a lot on it. So I'll start with the no ball. I think after what happened in India and how the BCCI trialed it, I think that was fantastic. I don't think there needs to be any debate about it. I do not understand why we don't go ahead with the same way of doing things everywhere else. There is absolutely no need to go beating around the bush with that. I believe that it worked perfectly. There was absolutely no problem with it. With regard to DRS, I think DRS as well. We expect it to be perfect. Unfortunately, there is no such thing as perfection here because it is projections. So either you believe it or you do not believe it. Uh, this is a projection of something that did not happen and will never happen. If you're looking at an LBW decision, it's tracking something which never happened and will never happen. So you have to take something of it at face value. You have to believe in it. You have to believe in the projections. Having said that, I think that technology is so good that Hawkeye and Virtual Eye are good enough to be able to deliver to us a product which is right many more times than it is wrong. We see that there are debates when it goes wrong. So the fact that there are debates when it goes wrong is testament to the fact that it is right so often. If you're looking at umpiring decisions, they're wrong so often because they're humans, and it's very difficult when you go about on the field trying to look at things in a high pressure situation with things moving so fast, with the bat and pad so close together. It's not easy. So there's nothing wrong with having intervention from technology, and technology is very good. They've got cameras now which are high speed. Hawkeye uses cameras which are about 300 frames per second, which are super slow-mo cameras, which you can never pick up with the naked eye. So as far as nicks are concerned, as far as deviations are concerned, you can tell a lot of those from front on, from side on. You've got the sticometer or the RTS as they call it. Both these things also work really well. They help you when they give you a split screen. Earlier we could never tell. We always used to think that he's edged the ball, but here you can tell. When the sound has come or when the deviation has happened, when the spike has happened. So it's a very different way of doing things, and it's evolved so much. And all credit to these technology companies for having put so much effort into it, and to the broadcasters for having put all the money into it, which is being appropriated for umpiring decisions. It's all the broadcasters' money. It's broadcasters are not really there to sort of make the decisions easy for the umpires, but that's how it has panned out. So I think there's been a huge commitment on the part of the broadcasters, and I think it's been pretty good.
Well, the DRS definitely is doing better than the VAR because every time there's just so much debate, especially in the Premier League. The VAR is not getting any decisions right, whether it's awarding 13 penalties to Manchester United. I'm a Manchester United fan, but yeah, go ahead, Deep.
Yeah, I mean, come on, let's not talk about Manchester United. But having said that, but I like the VAR process. Why I like the VAR process is a player is not involved. My point is, it is between the officials. They decide and they sort it out amongst themselves, right? So the umpire or the official sitting inside the VAR room, he tells the on-field umpire, and they sort it out amongst themselves. It is not the players who can appeal to the umpire. So that is a process that I like. VAR process of keeping it between the match officials, the umpires.
Well, in that way, I guess the players are a bit closer to the action in terms of the edges or the appeals, perhaps. That's why the cricketers are more involved, perhaps, in the appeal process. Is that something that you agree to, Hemant?
Well, the problem with having two, DRS appeals or three as they are now is that you sort of hedge your bets. You leave them for your best player, or if you got them in hand towards the end, you just take a punt because you want to take a punt. There is you're not losing anything like I think Jofra Archer did when he clearly knew he was out. It was the last wicket and they had the DRS reviews in hand and he went for it. So there is that problem. I see Deep's point that if it's taken out of the players' hands, you'd get more decisions right. You would not, if the intention is to get decisions right rather than looking at a captain's skill in taking DRS decisions. um, I mean, that's fine. There is though a spectacle involved with this whole process of the DRS, where somebody makes the signal, and then you sort of, the umpire makes a signal, and then everybody looks at replays, and then everybody has their own opinions, and then you come up with with a decision. So that's interesting. But I personally do not see how a non-striker can really help with LBWs, because he's not in the perfect position. For example, I mean, I would even go so far, and I've thought about it, is to have somebody, a sort of DRS specialist in your dressing room, and they can push a button within a certain amount of time, and you go for it, because in the end the aim is to get decisions right. So that might be a way of preserving the spectacle as well, and also doing something different.
Deep, you want to say
And
something?
quickly add to that, I mean, one is that the idea is to get the decision right. Secondly, also, it is so fundamental. We've been taught from as kids that the decision of the umpire is final. When you start challenging the authority of the umpire, it doesn't matter if you have one DRS, two or three. The idea is umpire's decision is final, and I mean, you sort it out. Obviously, the idea is obviously to get the right decision as well. So you sort it out amongst yourself. You have what, four officials and a match referee. So total of 5 officials you have for an international game. 3 umpires, 1/4 umpire, and a match referee. I mean, come on, you expect out of those 5 to come up with the right decision.
Right. Interesting chat that on DRS. A little more spotlight on this segment. Quick fire round, Hemant. One word answer and maybe one line explainer if you want to. Ready?
Okay.
1983 World Cup win or 2011 World Cup win?
1983.
Okay. Sachin Tendulkar or Brian Lara?
Brian Lara. Well, I mean, I just think I watched Lara bat in Sri Lanka. I edited the highlights of that series, and that was unbelievable. When on song, Lara made every bowler look helpless. I don't think any other batsman did that. He was absolutely brilliant.
Okay, talking about Lara and batting in Sri Lanka, Shane Warne or Muttiah Muralitharan?
Muttiah Muralitharan, for me, Shane Warne I like as a bowler, but the fact is that he sort of plays himself up too much. I prefer Murli being more down to earth, and I think he got more wickets as well. So,
okay.
Yeah.
You've directed a lot of cricket in this country. Cricket in the Caribbean or cricket in England or elsewhere?
Cricket in the Caribbean is, if you're doing the CPL, then cricket in the Caribbean. Because Test cricket in the Caribbean, you don't get too many crowds. But yeah, otherwise cricket in South Africa as well. That's pretty special.
Test cricket or T20 cricket? It's the obvious question to ask.
Test cricket for me, because you get to use more of your brains. You can tell more stories, and I like telling stories. It's more editorial. You can make the broadcast. In a T20 broadcast, you follow the play, and here you can sort of make the play.
Best cricket commentator in the world today, and what makes a great commentator in your opinion?
Best cricket commentator in the world would be a toss-up between Bishop and Nasser Hussain. What makes a great commentator is very different. I mean, it's the understanding of the game, and when to do what. You can't be you can't commentate the same way always. You need to lift when there is a lift required. You need to be sober when there is you need to be sober. You need, and I was having this conversation with Sanjay Manjrekar as well, and he was telling me about how different T20 commentary is from Test or ODI commentary, and how he finds it more difficult to do T20 commentary than Test commentary, and there would be others who would be the other way around. So there are specialists even there, and I think Deep might be able to also tell us a little bit because he's commentated on everything as well. I think it'd be interesting to have his view on this.
Deep?
Well, as Hemant mentioned, T20, obviously there is, you also get involved in the game, right? If you get involved personally in the game, for example, what I do is I start thinking as if I'm there on the field, and a lot of things come out naturally then, spontaneously, right? If you're there, if you think it's a test match and you're out there batting or bowling or whatever it is, because someone told me this, you always think like you're the bowling captain. So once you start thinking like a bowling captain, then you go with the flow of the game. If it, as Hemant mentioned, if it's a moment where you need to kind of get your pitch higher because it's a 4 or a 6 or whatever, you go with it. And I think that at least that works for me. That's how I see it. Just get involved in the game and not stay aloof.
Well, that brings us to the end of this episode on HotSpot. We've covered a varying range of topics from live cricket to cricket off the field, and a few questions, quick fire style towards Hemant as well. Our sincere thanks to him for taking time out and joining us on this episode. Thank you very much, Hemant.
Thank you, Chetan. Thank you, Deep. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
And our sincere thanks to Deep Dasgupta as well. As always, we hope to keep his company present. We'll be back soon with another episode of HotSpot, bringing you another relevant topic in these COVID era times, a topic which is relevant to cricket, of course. In the meantime, do give us your feedback and leave us comments on social media. Share this podcast on social media. You can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and we are also now on YouTube as well. Until next time, it is goodbye from all of us. Stay safe.
Dhoni finishes off in style. A magnificent strike into the crowd. India lift the World Cup after 28 years.